and if they can't figure out a way to not destroy our planet, then good riddance. Hey guys, what is up? It's Amy and welcome back to my channel. Cut my finger. But anyways, welcome back to my void. Today's video is going to be another sustainability video, and if you don't know what that is, it's basically a series here where I watch videos about sustainability and I drink tea. Once again, I'm filming this at night though. I don't want to drink tea because then I'm not going to sleep. So we're just going to be drinking water, and this time it's just going to be in a coffee mug because I broke both of my wine glasses in the past like 2 days. BRB. I have my water. So today's video is going to be by this YouTube channel called Our Changing Planet, one of my favorite YouTube channels ever. Today's video is called Why Your Carbon Footprint is a Scam.
Hey everyone, Charlie here. I just took the last 2 weeks off from video making to spend time with my family, so instead of a regular OCC video, I partnered up with Raleigh from the hilariously informative YouTube channel Climate Town to showcase one of his videos. So enjoy the video and definitely make sure to subscribe to Climate Town.
If you're like most people, you're waking up every night at 3 a.m. because you're so worried about your friggin' carbon footprint.
Oh my god, this is so funny.
We're talking bolt up, cold sweat, neck whiplash like you're in a trailer for a Harry Potter movie. My carbon footprint! Well, I gotta shrink that thing down or else the whole world is gonna die like Harry Potter's parents or Dumbledore or J.K. Rowling's reputation as a beloved author and not someone with weirdly draconian ideas about gender. What are you doing, J.K.? It doesn't matter. Everyone's personal carbon footprint is the key to solving climate change, right?
Yes.
No,
yes.
not right. I might go so far as to...
You just crushed my dreams.
To say wrong. Hello and welcome to Climate Town. My name is Raleigh Williams. I'm a citizen, complainer, Dracula apologist, and climate science grad student. And I'm...
As someone who studied poli-sci in high school, my favorite thing to do is complain.
I'm here to tell you that your carbon footprint is bullshit. Okay, we didn't all just start spontaneously saying carbon footprint. Somebody invented the term as a way to define the amount of CO2 a person generates based on their personal actions. And it seems reasonable.
That graph showed like 2005 is when it started going up, but the first time that I remember like hearing about carbon footprints and stuff was probably like high school when I took a class on environmental science, and we took that one quiz where you see like how many plants there would need to be in order to support your lifestyle, and I remember taking that quiz and I got like 3 planets or something, and I was like, but I am such a sustainable person, like I tried my best, like what do you mean there needs to be 3 planets? And it was really interesting because just by physically living in the United States, automatically my carbon footprint is higher, even without me having to make specific choices. So I think that's probably one of the reasons that carbon footprint is a scam, because oftentimes your carbon footprint encompasses things that you don't have control over.
Reasonable enough. I mean, it's genuinely a good idea to consider ways you can lessen your personal impact on the planet, only that's not what a carbon footprint is for. Oh, that's what they want you to think it's for, but they're lying to you. And the way I know this is because the they I keep tantalizingly referring to, the people who both created and popularized the term carbon footprint, are none other than BP.
Oh no! Plot twist! Oh my god, that is so funny. I mean, I'm not surprised. I feel like oftentimes on this channel, my public enemy number one is capitalism, and I feel like this is none other than capitalism back at it again.
What size is your carbon footprint?
Say again?
Size of what?
What?
No idea. What are you meaning?
What is that?
Not environmentalists, not the Democrats, not even my God King Al fucking Gore. The carbon footprint was strategically crafted by fossil fuel companies, ? Now you may remember BP as the company that checks notes.
The oil. Wasn't BP the one that had like that big oil spill in the Gulf of Mexico? Pretty sure that was them, and I'm pretty sure it's in the song, the After Ever After. I'm definitely not surprised that it's an oil company that came up with this as marketing. Oftentimes when it comes to companies wanting to profit, they are starting to realize that the environmental movement is very strong and people want to save the planet, so they will insert themselves into the sustainability movement in ways that allows them to keep profiting off of environmental destruction.
Dumped 200 million gallons of crude oil into the Gulf of Mexico. So what?
I'm literally so smart, like.
Was a fossil fuel company sinking millions of dollars trying to publicize the term carbon footprint because they knew they had a genius marketing campaign on their hands. But unlike other genius marketing ideas like Got Milk or singing Chili's baby back ribs or Budweiser's hilarious dilly dilly thing.
Dilly dilly. Dilly dilly.
Dilly dilly! Dilly dilly!
Dilly dilly.
Silly.
Well, unlike Dilly Dilly, BP crafted the carbon footprint as a way to get people to blame themselves for climate change instead of oil.
This is actually really eye-opening, and I'm actually like getting like this is like, I'm sorry if it seems like I'm overreacting, but this is actually making me very angry because I'm so tired of consumers being blamed for environmental destruction. I see this the most in a lot of Facebook groups, like environmental Facebook groups, like the way that people villainize consumers more than they will companies, and this is, I guess, where it all started. Like, so this company literally blaming consumers for they're the ones making the product, but they're blaming consumers for using their product.
The effect that my living has on the earth in terms of the products I consume.
So if they jammed the idea of the carbon footprint, jam the idea of the carbon footprint down our throats hard enough, and enough people bought in, they could reframe climate change and fossil fuel use as a personal problem. BP could then continue to burn, according to their own website, 12 million times more fossil fuels than the average person, without any significant repercussions.
Exactly, and that's why we need to stop blaming consumers, especially because we're at a point right now where we don't have a lot of alternatives, especially like in the United States. We're not investing in clean energy, so even you as a consumer, like, you don't have a lot of choices, and if you live in an apartment building, you don't get to choose what kind of energy is running through your apartment.
I mean, how can you have a carbon footprint if you don't even have feet? Excuse me, sir, we're trying to shoot a thing here. I don't know where this cat came from. Cat. Hey, I'm doing a thing about how BP invented the carbon footprint. Oh, you already knew about that? This whole thing started as
What a smart cat. I'm jealous.
a way for BP to deal with that thorny little PR nightmare. You might know it as climate change. And if you don't believe in climate change, first.
Speaking of PR, I really like that he framed it as like a PR nightmare, because that's basically what climate change is. Like, it's the reason why fast fashion companies are all of a sudden coming out with sustainable clothing lines. It's not because they care. They couldn't care less. They just want to profit off of the environmental movement, and they know that fast fashion is a PR nightmare. After you watch the documentary The True Cost, you kind of start to realize all of the problems with the fast fashion movement, and you might decide, okay, I need to support sustainable clothing lines. So here comes H&M with the Conscious collection, and you're like, oh great, I can now shop sustainably. But at the end of the day, you're still supporting a company that doesn't actually care about the environment.
First of all, thank you so much for watching. I can't thank you. But regardless of whether you do or don't believe in climate change, it's irrelevant because BP officially does believe in climate change, and not just internally. In a 2005 advertisement, they proudly exclaimed, "We became the first major energy company."
Don't be fooled. A company like BP saying they believe in climate change and saying they're doing things to be better for the environment, that doesn't change the fact that they're still lobbying the government to be able to not have to change the way that they produce energy. Like, that doesn't change the fact that they're still contributing negatively to the environment. Like, you can say all day that, yeah, I definitely believe in climate change, blah, 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 but if you're contributing to it and you're not doing more to actually invest in cleaner energy, and I know a lot of these companies are investing in clean energy, they're not doing it fast enough, and they're only doing the little that they are doing to make sure that they don't have that PR nightmare. So I'm definitely not falling for this. A company like BP saying they believe in climate change is just PR and marketing. There's no, like, I know I sound really cynical, but it's because how long have we been dealing with environmental destruction, and how much has actually been done in the past couple of years? Not much.
Company to publicly acknowledge the need to take steps against global warming. And with a serious statement like that, I mean, oh boy, I think we can really expect BP to divest from oil and invest in renewable energy. And what do you mean that didn't happen at all? Like, at all? What do you mean I shouldn't be surprised? What do you mean, who am I talking to?
And this here lies the problem. I think one of the biggest issues that we're facing with in the environmental movement is greenwashing. So I have a video on greenwashing in the fashion industry, but I think not just in the fashion industry, but across the board, greenwashing is such a big problem because companies like BP are able to profit off of the marketing that they can do when it comes to, like, yeah, we're supporting green energy, yay climate change, yay environmentalism. They'll either, one, make a goal that's super easy. So for example, a clothing company could say, we're going to use 100% organic cotton by 2050, and it's like there's companies now who are already using 100% organic cotton, so why is it gonna take you 30 years to switch to organic cotton? So like, that's way too easy. Or what they'll do is they'll make a super great, really ambitious goal and then do nothing about it. And this is something that companies like Amazon have done, where like they'll make a commitment and then it'll be like 5 years and they have 2 years left, and then like you'll look back and they'll be like, wait, you guys haven't even started. Are you sure you're gonna be able to do this goal in time? And it's like, no, they're not gonna be able to accomplish it, but it doesn't matter because they already benefited from saying that they were going to do this thing.
What do you mean the whole what do you mean section's gonna get cut? Okay, it's gone.
This video is so funny. I'm definitely gonna go subscribe to this guy, Climate Town. Really hilarious. I love it.
What do you mean, who am I? But you can't just fake it, right? I mean, you gotta have a little thing called showmanship. And that's why BP hired marketing superstars Ogilvy and Mather.
Ogilvy and Mather.
Marketing. When I think of marketing, all I can think of is Associated Strategies, New Girl, best show of all time. So I think Ben & Jerry's is also another company that kind of got in trouble. Like, they got a little bit of heat because they hired someone who was like an environmentalist, but they were also like a marketing person, like a PR person. So it was like, are you hiring this person because you want to be more sustainable, or are you hiring them so that you can make your company look better?
And they gave them the paltry sum of $250 million to make them appear environmentally conscious without the obvious downside of actually having to care about the environment.
Oh no. Yeah, like the money in this, like it's just so sad. Like the amount of money that goes into companies trying their hardest not to actually be sustainable, because it does cost money.
It's a good script. It's a good script. And these Ogilvy and Mather guys are good. Okay, they're like Don Draper from Mad Men good. And not to belabor this whole Mad Men thing, but do you remember that episode of Mad Men where Don Draper is trying to make the whole Kodak slide wheel cool and everyone's like, we can't do it, we can't make it cool, and Don Draper's like, it's
this is all going over my head. I've never watched this show, but I have heard of it.
not a wheel, it's a carousel, and everyone's like, oh, Don Draper, this is why you're the greatest.
In Greek, nostalgia literally means the pain from an old wound.
Wow, that's good television.
That's really good. I like that.
I mean, I don't care who you are, you gotta watch Mad Men. Sorry. Anyway, apparently this whole blank is Greek for other blank thing is an old advertising standby, because the Ogilvy and Mather boys named the BP rebrand the Helios campaign, which is of course Greek for sun. They actually spent more money telling people about their solar energy projects than they did on their solar energy.
And you're telling me I shouldn't be mad? So I mentioned this in my last reaction video, but Amazon is kind of does something similar to this, where they'll put so much effort into saying they're doing all these amazing things, but when you actually look at it, they're not actually doing anything. So this is the same thing, where they're telling people all these amazing things like, wow, support solar energy, but are they actually doing that? No. And this kind of also brings me back to I'm so sorry because I always get off topic in these videos, but kind of similar to this is in humanitarianism, oftentimes a lot of money will be spent in like fundraising and advertising and doing all that kind of stuff, and then the money that you're actually giving to these humanitarian organizations isn't actually going to helping the people who they're saying they're helping. It's just going back to fundraising and raising awareness, and it's like, it's this vicious cycle, and it's just really like, I'm tired.
Energy projects. This guy gets it. You get it, right? I'm sorry, it's too hot outside, I couldn't do it anymore. Even actual environmentalists adopted the concept and pushed the idea of lowering your carbon footprint as the way to solve climate change. To be clear, you can and should reduce the amount of fossil fuels you use, and you can and should feel good when you do that. But the problem is that it is physically impossible for an American citizen.
This is it. This is what I was talking about earlier in the video. So I'm gonna link that quiz down below so you guys can go see it. But so I'm an American citizen, but I'm currently living in France. So either way, developed nations. But as someone living in a country like France or the US or Canada, it doesn't matter how hard you try, doesn't matter what you do, your carbon footprint is just always going to be higher than everyone else, because you live in a country where industries are producing a lot of carbon. Even if you try your hardest to not produce as much carbon, like the whole US in general is just overall producing a lot of carbon to like power our houses and our buildings, to make sure you have running water, and to power stadiums. Like, someone has to account for the power that goes at the mayor's office, for example. Like, the energy is going to be consumed either way. So yes, you should decrease your carbon footprint, but that's not where we should end. Like, that the story doesn't end there. It goes straight back to the people who are producing the energy, like BP, who aren't actually investing in solar energy, and instead they're just advertising it.
To reduce their carbon footprint to even double the global average, because built into your carbon footprint are all sorts of things that are outside of your control. We're talking highways, bridges, ramps, both on and off, the military, and a whole bunch of other services that the...
And that's honestly one of my biggest issues with like the zero waste community. One of my most popular reaction videos was when I was reacting to Lauren Singer, and I'll have that link down below. But one of my biggest, the issue with like trying to be zero waste is, you can try your hardest as an individual to be zero waste, but what about the waste that's produced by airplanes? Like, who gets to account for that? What about the waste that's produced by your local library? Whose waste is that? What about the waste that's produced at your school? Like, if you're a student going to a school, there's waste that's going to be produced that might not be in your control, but like, does that just not appear? Like, it still exists. Just because you aren't throwing it into your own physical garbage doesn't mean that that waste doesn't exist. If the Olympics is in your country, whose waste is that? Do you know how much energy goes into producing the... What about the Super Bowl? Like, I lived in Minneapolis, so do I have to account for a part of the waste that's generated? And there's a lot of waste generated when it comes to the Super Bowl. Like, whose waste is that? Just because you're not physically participating in these events doesn't mean that this waste doesn't exist, and these events are going to continue happening unless we actually fight for change that's outside of our physical spaces and our physical like apartments and houses. Like, you can make a lot of change as an individual, but I think we've become too comfortable with just stopping at the individual level and not continuing into the community and into the country.
The government, in part, uses fossil fuels that are supplied, in part, by BP.
Also, this is why it's super, like I said, I lived in Minneapolis, and it's super awesome because they're investing a lot in reusable buses, which I think is so awesome. So that's a situation where you as an individual might decide to get an electric car, and that's reducing your carbon footprint. But if you can advocate for your state or for your city to get more electric charging stations so it makes it easier for more people to get cars, if you can advocate for your state or city to have more rebates for people who want to get electric vehicles to kind of spread the joy and have more people using EVs, that's also great. And also, if you can advocate for electric buses, which is something that was happening in Minneapolis, that's great, because then now people who use buses, they also have a reduction in their carbon footprint even more, because using public transportation is also a lot better than individual cars. But these are ways where you can not just reduce your own carbon footprint, but reduce the carbon footprint of the city in general, which is how we're going to be able to beat climate change, by reducing, not just focusing on ourselves, but focusing on the community.
It's not a small fraction. The majority of your carbon footprint is made up of fossil fuels burned on your behalf. It's kind of like when your mom sends her friend Nancy a birthday card, but then she signs it also from you. I was not involved in that card, Nancy, and I do not endorse the role model pun. Nor would I have chosen a Cars 2 novelty stamp. Now you might be thinking to yourself, hey, come on man, corporations gotta corporate, okay? It's not BP's job to save the world.
Yes, it is. This kind of goes back to the idea of like voting with your dollar, which I think is definitely important. It's important to support companies that are doing good and to not support companies that are doing bad, so that you can disincentivize the bad companies. But that's just you working within the capitalist structure, and corporations are going to continue to be bad, and they're going to continue to greenwash consumers. So governments definitely need to step in and put rules on these companies so that they're not polluting our waters and they're not polluting our air as much as they have been. Like, yes, consumers can do something. We don't have all the power. Like, we're not superheroes. We can't fix all of these issues without the corporations actually being held accountable for the waste and the destruction that they are causing in our communities.
All right, they're not doing anything illegal. Basically,
we can make it illegal though. That's the other thing. Like, the Trump administration, one of the most frustrating things that they have done is they've basically repealed so many, I can't remember the specific number, but I'll have it on the screen if I'm able to find the data, but they've repealed so many environmental like laws and regulations that were put in the Obama administration. And like the EPA, for example, the head of the EPA during the Trump administration was like someone like an oil executive or something, and I'm just like, you're telling me that you're put like that's it's so frustrating. Like, why would you do that? I mean, I understand it because you're just going to make sure that the regulations are loosened so that these corporations have more power. But if we don't want our waterways to be dirty, we can make that illegal. Just like we don't want people to be murdered, so we made murder illegal. We want to make sure that people aren't inhaling secondhand smoke, so we made it illegal to smoke in restaurants. Like, we can make things illegal based on what we need, and what we need right now is to not have climate change. So we can make these things illegal for corporations, and then they'll have to deal with it. And if they can't figure out a way to not destroy our planet, then good riddance.
I'm hating the player and not the game. Well, if I could continue that metaphor a little bit, I would say that this is a scenario where the players have gotten so rich and so powerful that they've either bribed or bullied the referees into making whatever they want to do legal. And they've also set the stadium on fire, and they've...
Like, at this point, my channel is just a diss track on capitalism. So something else that really annoys me is that corporations, when they have so much money, this happens when it comes to companies like BP, but also pharmaceutical companies. They have so much money that they'll break the law and then they'll be fined for it, and paying the fine is cheaper than actually following the law. Why would they follow the law if they can just pay the fine and save money? That's another issue that we really need to address.
Blamed it on the hot dog salesman or the fans. Blamed it on the fans. Whatever. BP regularly lobbies against regulations that would force them to make fuel cleaner. They tell people they want a carbon tax, and then they spend millions making sure a carbon tax gets shot down. They've actually conspired with other fossil...
I just had a feeling that they're the type of company that's going to, on one hand, say, yes, climate change is real, we support environmental regulations, and then they'll lobby against it. It makes sense. Like, once again, what is the issue? Say it with me, capitalism.
Fossil fuel companies to slow down electric cars and more fuel-efficient modes of transportation. It just leads us to the inescapable conclusion that we as consumers are not free to choose between fossil fuels and a cleaner alternative because fossil fuel companies have rigged the system. It would be a lot like if Michael Jordan was allowed to be the producer on that Michael Jordan documentary Save the Last Dance. So if there is a conclusion, and there is, and it's this: we can't shrink our personal carbon footprints down enough to stop climate change if we let fossil fuel companies just crank it right back out.
Exactly. That is exactly the issue. Like, it's just as sad of a reality it is. I think it should be relieving for people to know that they are not the problem. Like, they're not the ones at the end of the day dumping things into the rivers. Like, they're not the ones doing that. And if they need to go, and if someone needs to have electricity in their apartment and the only choice is XL Energy, they shouldn't be responsible for what XL Energy is doing.
Oh, they'll preach the gospel of carbon offsets or low carbon fuels or net zero by 2050, but these are the exact same companies who have spread misinformation and lied and generally dodged all responsibility on global warming for 60 years. And I am not saying the consumer is blameless here, okay? BP may have provided the oil, but we used it. Both BP and the consumers are to blame here. But in order for us to get anything done,
I kind of get where he's going with this, but I kind of have to disagree because, like I said, like on the point when it comes to energy, like I have never, I don't know how energy works. Like if you have a house, I think that's when you can make the choice on like which energy company to use. But when I lived in my apartment in Minneapolis, like I didn't get to choose what kind of energy company that we use. Like the apartment buildings itself worked with XL Energy, and I just had to set up the account with them and pay them every month. Like I didn't get to make that choice. I think if you live in your own house, then you can like pick what kind of energy you have. And also at the end of the day, like solar energy and these more sustainable energy resources are very expensive, and if we don't have the right incentives and we don't have enough and if we're not providing the funds for people to be able to afford these kinds of energies, then I'm not expecting people to buy solar panels for their house if they can't afford it. So if you do have the money, then yes, you should be investing in these kinds of cleaner energies, and we should all be lobbying our governments to have more affordable, cleaner energy, and also to hold these companies accountable. But I think the blame definitely is more towards these companies, because as this video has shown, they're doing so much to go against environmentalism while also greenwashing consumers.
BP and other fossil fuel companies have to admit some real culpability here and make some genuine moves to help shrink their own massive carbon footprint. This is the part of the video where I would normally tell you just to vote for people who believe in climate change and leave it at that. But ironically, the real solution is a little more victim blaming. We all have to be super goddamn annoying about climate change for the next 10 years. We have to.
You're saying I get to be annoying? I'm definitely that annoying person. So back when you could actually like interact with humans in the real world, I was that person who, like, if I was at a party, I would just somehow always get back to talking about politics and like talk about the environment. Like I was that person. So I got you. Like I'm already there with you.
Talk about it all the time. We have to read about it. We have to tweet about it, JK Rowling. We've got to make TikTok dances, Instagram memes, t-shirts, novelty stamps, the whole 9 yards. Force our corporations and our institutions and our governments to stop burning fossil fuels. Now, it is partially our fault that we got.
So, what's the High School Musical song? That song. That's basically it. Like, we all need to work together and come together and just bully these corporations. I know in my hometown, there's this company, Smithfield, it's like a meat plant. They always dump things into the river every single year around the clock, and they get held accountable, and then the next year they do it again. So obviously they're not being fined enough, or they should be there should be some kind of consequence where after a certain number of times you just get your license revoked and boom, you're out of business. And I mean, obviously that's not something I want at all, because my parents actually work in that factory, so that would not be good. But also I don't think that corporation wants that, so we need to scare them into actually following these laws, because it's really important for the future.
Out here, but it is also majorly the fault of BP and Exxon and Shell and these fossil fuel companies that got us addicted to these fuels in the first place. So let's get to twerking about it. Thank you so much for
Whoa, wait a damn minute.
watching. This has been Climate Town. I'll see you next time.
Excuse me, sir. We're trying to shoot a thing here, and roll over. You get that?
Dilly dilly.
This video was made by Raleigh over at the YouTube channel.
This video was literally so good. I don't know why I've never found this guy's channel before, but let me go subscribe real quick. Such a good video. So many great points that were brought up. Subscribe. Oh, he only has 20,000. I really enjoyed this video. He brought up so many points, and I need to kind of branch out and stop talking about capitalism, but it's just really, I don't want to say interesting, because interesting is not the best word to describe it, but I think it's definitely very telling of the point where we're at, because these companies will do so much to get you to support them. They'll do so much to get you to think that they're being environmentally friendly. They'll do as much as they can. They'll spend all of the money, all of the cash, all of the time to look like they're environmentally friendly. But when it comes to actually putting the time and money to be environmentally friendly, you hear crickets from them. It's really sad, and that's why I think it's really important to educate yourself on like greenwashing and on what companies are actually sustainable. So I have a video on what makes a sustainable business, and it's actually a series, and I'm working on the second part. But we definitely need to educate ourselves on the issues and be more active, not just in our community, and yet yes, in our community, but also nationally. But we also need to be making changes in our own physical spaces and in our own lives that is going to be better for the planet. This is such a holistic, I watched the TED Talk. I might rewatch it and like do a reaction on it, but I remember watching a TED Talk about what we need to do to fight against climate change and to make sure that we don't have an environmental catastrophe. And the biggest point that I got from this video was that there's no one thing that we have to do. It's literally impossible. There's no one solution where we can say, well, if everyone decreases their carbon footprint, then we're gonna be fine. If everyone goes vegan, we're gonna be fine. If we stop driving cars and we walk everywhere, we're gonna be fine. The problem is so big that we can't just have one solution that fixes it all. There's no band-aid for this. We need to make changes in basically every single aspect of our life, from our physical lives to the way we run businesses, to the way we do transportation, to the way governments are work. Like, there's so many things that we can do. But yeah, I really enjoyed this video. And if you enjoyed my video reacting to this video, hit that subscribe button. You can also like this video if you liked it. You can also dislike it if you did, so that I know you don't like it. And it's also great for engagement, so thank you for leaving a dislike. I'll also have my social media link down below, so you can follow me on Instagram as well as TikTok. But that was it for this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in my next one. Bye guys.